Hi, and welcome to this Gigamon explanation of basically what is visibility fabric. I'm Richard Steenan. I'm an industry analyst and author, and I'm talking today to Martin Crew from Gigamon. Welcome, Martin.
Richard, hi. Nice to meet you.
Real pleasure. So tell us about visibility fabric. It's a great name, and I'm fascinated.
Okay, great. Yes, so I'm responsible here for solutions marketing, which is really all about how we take the message about our core product to end users in business-like terms. So what I'm going to talk about for the next few minutes is, to your question, Richard, what is a visibility fabric? And after we've discussed it, we can actually show something to you. So my colleague Mohammed Durrani will be here. He can actually show you the fabric. Then after that, we can just talk about why is it actually important to business users? What is it about the visibility and analytics that's so critical to them in the present business environment? So most people are very familiar with the complexity of networks these days. No one's going to argue that networks have got more and more complex and that they're getting more complex all the time. As companies have moved out of the data center into virtualized environments, into hybrid and cloud environments, there is more and more data coming out the network from more and more different types of devices through different types of switches. And of course, as this volume grows, you have to have tools to help you manage it because we're way beyond the scope of what a human can do. So most organizations that we talk to typically are deploying 10 to 20 different types of tools on the network. And depending on the scale of the network, they often have multiples of each of those tools. So we have a very, very complex environment that most companies operate in. Despite all these tools, it's very difficult for people still to keep up with the speed and the complexity needs. So networks have got no more manageable now than they really were a decade ago. Our approach to this is pretty simplistic in our view. It's to say we need to build an abstraction layer between the network and the tools that manage it. And that's what we call the Gigamon Visibility and Analytics Fabric. So what this does is it really does four things. The first is it provides access to all the data on the network. So it doesn't matter whether it's getting data from IoT devices, from servers within a data center, from virtualized servers, from the cloud in all its flavors, or most likely some combination of all of that. So it provides visibility into that environment. And visibility means a number of things. So it means top to bottom. So we go all the way from packet level to application level. So for example, we now have a product called the Application Intelligence Suite of products. And what they do, they understand the digital signatures of over 3,500 applications. And that can be extended with custom applications as well, so that we can actually see all the applications running on the network. We can visualize them. We can look at the traffic they're generating. We can classify that traffic as high risk, low risk, filter it. So that's a very important aspect of top to bottom visibility on the network. Then the other key aspect of visibility is visibility into the actual nature of the traffic. So more and more traffic on the network these days is obviously encrypted for security reasons. So we can provide people with a centralized decryption capability. So we decrypt once, and then that traffic can be shared to anything on the network that needs it. Obviously, once we've decrypted and understood what it is and where it needs to go, we re-encrypt it so there's no man-in-the-middle threat. But we provide visibility to everything on the network, whatever its form. So we provide that visibility, we aggregate everything so you can view it through a single pane of glass, and then we transform it. So we look for things like duplicate packets, because most networks these days have significant amounts of duplicate packets on the network. So identifying those reduces the amount of traffic that's going to all the tools and applications that you're using. And by doing that, you probably end up needing less of those tools than maybe you thought. So we can do this transformation capability, whether it's deduplication, whether it's handling encrypted traffic. And then very importantly, we handle the analysis of it. So again, more and more traffic means more and more things to look out for, way beyond the scope of what any team of humans can do. So we use artificial intelligence, we use machine learning in our threat insight module to help organizations understand what's happening on the network, Are there attacks taking place? Are there attacks developing? What are my priorities? Let's get our people looking at the key issues. So we handle all of that capability. So that's the nature of the visibility and analytics fabric. We think is indispensable to network management these days. And what I'm going to do now is introduce my colleague, Mohammed Durrani, and he's going to give you a quick overview of the visibility analytics fabric, specifically the fabric manager that shows you from an operator perspective how you would manage the network.
Martin, before we do that, can you explain to me, the difference between what I'm used to thinking of is a bunch of physical taps or span ports in a data center. But you mentioned hybrid cloud, and you're talking about things that are very remote. How do you actually capture data from a cloud instance, for instance?
So if you think about the approach that we would use with a span port, which actually isn't our preference, we actually prefer to use a tap on the network because it's much more accurate. Span ports often get overloaded and you start to drop data. So we prefer to use a tap onto the network. We do a very similar thing in the cloud. So we have the physical tap and we have the virtual tap. And the virtual tap can sit in any cloud environment. It can sit within containers, for example, and it will help us monitor exactly what's happening on the network.
Cool. And then the deduping are duplicate packets just created by a network device resending the way TCP/IP works, or is it because there are multiple devices in the path and they're all sending the same thing?
Yeah, so the former is possible, that a single device could send multiple packets, but the most likely scenario is the second one, that you have a wide variety of different devices on the network monitoring the same traffic, and they then send that on into the network. So that's the most likely scenario. In our situation, the way that we handle it is we have a centralized deduplication resource, just as we have a centralized decryption resource. So instead of burdening individual tools or the firewall in particular with these tasks that typically really impact their processing capability and their ability, therefore, to do their own jobs, we take that task away from those devices. We handle it centrally in a very optimized fashion. We have appliances that are specifically engineered towards these math-oriented tasks, like decryption. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, that traffic, once we understand it, is sent on only to those tools or applications that need it, and we actually recode, we re-encrypt before we do that.
Cool, got it. Let's see what this looks like.
Okay, Mohammed, over to you.
Thank you, Martin. My name is Mohammed Durrani. I'm the technical marketing engineer with Gigamon. So today I will show you what Martin told you, the importance of Gigamon's visibility analytics fabric in today's ever-changing world where the security and performance tools are having issues to cope up with the security and performance needs. I will show you how it is done through Gigamon's visibility analytics fabric. So we are here at the UI, which is a simple UI for GigaView Fabric Manager. And you can see in the inventory tab, we have all the physical fabric nodes listed here, which are ready to grab traffic from your physical environments, as well as acquire traffic and aggregate traffic from your virtual and private environments. You can also have your visibility fabric nodes in your AWS. Under the virtual tab, you can see it is under AWS, Azure, Kubernetes. It's all listed here: OpenStack, VMware, any cloud, and Nutanix even. So you can grab traffic from all these parts of your network, acquire the traffic, aggregate it, and then send it on to further optimization before distributing it to the tools. So by acquiring traffic and aggregating traffic, what I mean by is, let's go to the traffic tab of the GigaView Fabric Manager, and I'm going to look at the flow maps. If we look at the flow maps, we see all our fabric nodes here, and one of the nodes is a tap aggregator. What it's doing is, it is basically acquiring traffic from different parts of your network through strategically placed tap agents, whether they are physical, virtual tap agents, and basically it is then acquiring and then aggregating through maps. After aggregation, which Martin talked about in his slides, that the fundamental building blocks of a visibility annex fabric is first acquiring traffic and then aggregating traffic. So we are acquiring traffic now, then we are aggregating traffic, and then sending it further to our more smart HC appliances, which are going to optimize the traffic. By optimizing, we'll see it will basically get the traffic of interest for the tools. So separate the noise from the signal, only send the signal to the tools so that the tools are not getting overwhelmed in separating the noise from the signal, only receive the traffic of interest. So that's what optimization means, and we'll see there are different ways of optimizing it. And here you can see we are acquiring traffic from different parts of the network, aggregating them, and then passing it on to our HC appliances for further optimization. I come back here, and then we go to the, so I'll basically now show you the optimization part, which is after the aggregation is completed, then we are optimizing it on our HC appliances, the traffic that we are receiving. So right now you can see I've configured a traffic policy where we have certain source ports where all that aggregated traffic is being received, and there is a certain amount of traffic that is being received on those ports. And once the traffic is being received, then we are applying the traffic mirroring policy. What we're saying is, hey, I only want to grab port 443 traffic, which is SSL traffic, and send it to my tool, which is at a certain port connected to our fabric nodes. The tool is anti-malware tool. It's only interested to see only the encrypted traffic. So that is what we mean by optimization. That's one part of optimization. Similarly, another tool has the need to only see port 80 traffic, and we are looking at the port 80 traffic now, and then sending it to the application performance management tool here. Then in the third rule, we say that we're going to grab all IPv4, IPv6 traffic, apply dedupe, which means, so dedupe is a function, again a smart function, where when you are acquiring traffic from different parts of your organization, from different parts of your network, there's bound to be duplicate packets that can happen. So there will be packets that will be tapped multiple times in different places of your network. The original packet only going to be one packet, but then there will be further copies of that packet that will be aggregated and being sent to these smart appliances. And what we don't want to do is send all those duplicate copies to the tools, because then it can cause problems for application performance management tool. The tool may look at the copy as a real packet and may it will blow up the numbers. Like it will say my HTTP bandwidth is X versus Y, whereas it should have been Y. With duplicate packets, it may increase up to X, which is not the right number to report, right? So with deduplication, what we're doing is we are dropping the duplicate packets before sending only the real packet towards the tool. And if I click on the deduplication function, you can see the stats of the flow that's happening right now at this policy layer. We are receiving certain packet count, but we are dropping certain packets from that stream because those packets are deemed duplicate packets. So rest assured, by applying this deduplication, we are optimizing the traffic in a way that the tool only sees the original traffic only, no duplicates in the traffic. And now we can see the same is only receiving the original copy of the traffic. There are other ways we can we can do the transformation for the traffic before sending the tools. For example, what we can do is if I say edit in here to my policy, and you can see in the packet transformation section, we can do deduplication, as I already mentioned that. We can slice the payload. Certain tools only want to see the headers. They don't want to see, or we can slice the headers too. We can mask confidential information from the traffic. For example, your health records contain sensitive information. Credit card information is a very sensitive information. If it gets into the hands of the bad guys, they can do identity frauds. And then we can also add headers. Certain tools want to see certain headers, we can add. So these are all the packet transformations that can happen at this layer before sending it to the tool. So this is the optimization that's taking place. So right now I'm going to cancel this. What other stuff we can do in optimization is we can identify applications from the traffic that we are aggregating. So we can, right now you can see I'm looking at the application intelligence dashboard. This application intelligence dashboard is lighting up because we are applying deep packet inspection on the packets that are being aggregated. After they're acquired, aggregated, and being sent to us for optimization, we are doing the deep packet inspection. We are finding out all your applications within that packet stream, within that stream, traffic stream, and then we are listing your top bandwidth hogs, your flow hogs. We're giving you the application traffic that is at any given time. We're also listing the applications that are in your network, and after getting the information about this application traffic, you can further optimize what traffic needs to go to certain tools and what traffic does not need to go to certain tools. For example, here we can say, I only want to send my HTTPS and HTTP traffic to my tool that is interested. So I'll just say, select the traffic, HTTPS, HTTP, just as I did. I click on application filtering. I click on pass all for both these applications, HTTPS and HTTP. I select the tool destination, which is connected to one of these ports. Let's say it's connected to port 12x4. I click on that. I filter to, and you can see if I click save here, it is immediately going to start sending HTTPS and HTTP traffic towards that tool that is connected on port 12x4. So it is that easy. Similarly, we can generate application metadata also from this raw traffic and send the contextual information to the tools, tools like SIM. So we can do a lot of things. Again, we can do SSL decryption and share the clear text traffic with multiple tools at any given time. We mentioned we can also go and grab your traffic, acquire your traffic from your cloud environments, not only just physical environments. So you can see right now we are grabbing traffic from our VMware environment. So the monitoring domain is ready to receive traffic from a cluster in vCenter that has like 3 ESXi hosts, and we have our fabric nodes, which are called vSeries nodes, running on each of the ESXi hosts and grabbing traffic from all the targeted workloads that are running, like the virtual machines that we want to get the traffic from, running on those ESXi hosts. We are ready to receive traffic for those nodes and send them to the tool destinations. The tool destinations can be within the vCenter. It can be in public cloud, which your tool can be running in public cloud. Your tool can be running on-prem. So no matter where your workloads are and where your tools are, we can go in and grab traffic from everywhere and distribute it to anywhere after optimization. Optimization is your choice. Always, it's the best practice to optimize the traffic and send it to the tools. You can send traffic as it is, as you receive. That is up to you, but the best practice is optimize it. Find out what your end goal is, what traffic the tools need to see. Filter that traffic out from the aggregated traffic, which is optimization part, and then distribute it to your analytics tools for further analysis. So in this case, we're looking at the traffic in the vCenter, and I've configured a monitoring session. As you can see, I click on that. I'll show you the monitoring session as edit, and we are saying from that vCenter in the cluster, there is a VM that's running with specific IP address of 192.168.1.12. So I'm saying, hey, I'm interested to see any traffic that this VM receives or sends. So my map rule says IPv4 source that IP and IPv4 destination that IP. If the traffic matches this criteria, then send it to the tool which is ntop ng or you can it can be that is the tool destination we're talking about. So this tool is running on this IP address. Once we grab the traffic, we're going to send the traffic to this tool, and you can receive that traffic on that tool destination. Similarly, we have another map which is ready to acquire traffic for DNS. Any DNS activity that happens within that cluster between the VMs, especially the east-west traffic, we have set a filter to grab traffic for the DNS and send it to these different tools. One beauty about this visibility analytics fabric from Gigamon is you acquire traffic once, aggregate it, optimize it, and then share it with many tools. You don't have to basically have every tool do its own part. Every tool is, you can see, leveraging the Gigamon's visibility analytics fabric from here. This concludes my demo. I hand it over to Martin.
Thank you, Mohammed. That was very interesting. So having seen the Fabric Manager, let's now talk about the business reasons why this is important. So all organizations these days are under a huge amount of pressure. Pressure to do things like digital transformation. The lack of the face-to-face business model for most organizations mean we've all transitioned in a very, very significant degree to having to rely on our online presences. So having the infrastructure to support that is critical. Second thing is, while the pressure's on to do more in terms of enabling digital transformation, most organizations are working with constrained budgets, constrained resources. So the pressure isn't just to do more, it's to do more with less. And two examples of that are supporting the dynamic workplace. So we've now moved from a situation where most people are working from home full-time to where people are often migrating from the home office to the work office. They might be working somewhere on the road. So how do you provide the same level of applications access, the same level of security to people regardless of where they are? Then the final thing is you have to do all of this in a secure way. There's no point providing great online access, web access to your employees, to your customers, to business partners, if you're not guaranteeing their security in that process. So most organizations that we speak to these days are looking to transition to a new security model. So we're going to talk about these four things in just a little bit more detail over the next 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, so the digital experience. So these days, as I mentioned, it's critical that organizations make the digital experience, the online experience, as engaging as possible. The ability to engage face-to-face with people has been greatly diminished, and that's true whether you are a business organization deploying an e-commerce system to get orders in these days, or whether you're a government organization, maybe a DMV or unemployment benefits organization. Your interactions with your customers, your consumers, your employees are now predominantly online. So making sure they have the best possible experience is critical. So underlying that ability to deliver that experience, you have to have an infrastructure that can deliver the performance that organizations need, deliver the security that they need, and deliver the flexibility and agility that they need. It has to be 365, 24/7. There's no getting around this. Most organizations these days are geared up towards this. They're geared up to the reality that most of their customers are not just going to be hitting them from one particular device. Through the course of the day, they might be hitting them from multiple devices. Maybe the corporate laptop that's been issued, maybe the mobile phone, maybe their own laptop. So you have to be able to support an unlimited number of devices accessing the network at any time. And then finally, and critically, security has to be the cornerstone of a digital transformation. There is no point making this capability available unless it's secure. Unless it's secure, you're going to lose consumers very, very quickly. They're going to discover that there are issues. They're going to go shop somewhere else. With employees transmitting critical company information, it's imperative that this is secure. And in relations with government, maybe healthcare organizations where you're transmitting personally sensitive information, that security has to be guaranteed. So enabling this is the critical thing that the visibility and analytics fabric does. Second thing is you've got to be able to do more with less. Obviously, right after COVID hit and work from home hit, there was an imperative in most organizations to ensure security. So security budgets really weren't impacted, but a lot of other budgets were either put on hold or they were just taken away. So every organization that we speak to these days, whether they're top 10 government agencies, healthcare organizations, whoever, they're trying to figure out how they do more with less. So one of the critical things that we've done at Gigamon is to deploy what we call a value calculator that helps organizations see what it's actually costing to run all these different tools on the network, to model what happens with those tools if data volumes expand at certain percentages, so they can get a real handle on what it's actually costing. So the fabric enables us to see all the traffic on the network, to understand what tools on the network need access to that traffic, understand whether they need everything, whether it can be filtered, whether it can just be sent at a metadata level. So we optimize the tools, and by optimizing tools, we optimize teams. One of the critical things, even going into this year, was that most security organizations were understaffed. There's about a 15% shortfall in talent in the industry. So organizations were already short of resources. This situation has made things much, much worse. So now it's essential that teams are optimized to the maximum possible. So that means using tools, using automation to free people up from doing these routine tasks. Let machines handle that with machine learning, with AI, and have people focus on the priority issues that make a difference to the business. And then finally, understanding where savings can be made. So I alluded to this earlier on, but this is very, very important. You can't just take a 15% cut to the network, switch off 15% of the servers, the applications, whatever. You just cannot do that. You have to do this on an intelligent basis. So to do that, you have to have the data about what is actually on my network, what applications are running, which are the highest traffic applications and therefore the most important, which apps can I maybe sideline or handle in a different way. So getting the visibility we provide is critical to the decision organizations need to take on doing more with less. We've now transitioned, as I mentioned, from sort of a binary environment where you were either in the office or you were working from home to a situation where most organizations are deploying staff in both models. So how do you make sure that people have access to the same applications, are equally secure in both of those environments? So we support the dynamic workplace, and we do this with our partners. We have an ecosphere of 300 plus partners worldwide. And we work with them, we work with the applications and tools that they provide to ensure complete security from the individual device through to the network in sort of this extended network detection model. So that's something that we play a very, very critical role in, along with our partners, in delivering this environment. And then finally, just talk about the new network, securing the new network. So the old model of perimeter defense, of trusting people who are within the network to have the level of access they need and having pretty simplistic application or server level controls has gone forever. It's one of the consequences of the situation that we're in right now, that most organizations are looking at this new model where they no longer can rely on trusting individual users, individual devices, individual network assets, individual applications, partner applications, whatever. That model is gone. So most organizations that we work with these days are looking at some variant of what's called a zero trust model, where the idea is that nothing on the network is trusted and that you have to protect every individual asset at a very granular level. So using things like multi-factor authentication, using things like micro-segmentation to defend small asset segments of the network, these are absolutely critical. It's critical because we are seeing so much more data on the network, so many more users on the network, and so many more devices on the network. One of the significant shifts we've seen over the last few years is the adoption of Internet of Things devices and operational technologies. Everything from the access key that I used to get into the building this morning to all the devices that I'm going to encounter during the course of a day, both in my business and my private activity. All these devices now intelligent. They're all recording my interactions to some degree. All of this information is very, very valuable to the network managers and to the security teams. So capturing this is critical. And that's one of the things that working with our partners we do. So it's not a matter of only corporate-owned network devices can be managed. We can actually manage anything that a user interacts with through the course of a day. So we've seen the adoption of zero trust, first and foremost in government organizations, but now it's rippling out. So whether I talk to healthcare organizations or other companies, for example, last week I was talking to a civil engineering company in Australia who are deploying zero trust across their entire project infrastructure on all their field sites, everything, because they've realized that everything on the network now has to be secured, and the only real model to do it is to take this zero trust approach. The final aspect of this is that we're now dealing with so much data that the human brain is just way out of capacity. So we have to figure out how we use artificial intelligence and machine learning on the network to do this. So one of the tools that we have is a product called Threat Insight. What Threat Insight does is it builds a data store, a cloud data store, that gives you visibility into all the network traffic, all the interactions between users and that traffic, and then lets your security team sift through that to look for patterns, potentially patterns of attack, patterns of suspicious user behavior, all these type of things, and to prioritize that. So it looks at history, looks at what's happening now, and it figures out where the anomalies are, and then tells the security team, hey, this is looking anomalous. We should actually drill into this and figure out what's going on. So securing the new network is wholly dependent on having visibility into that network in the first place. So that's really what I wanted to say. So the final piece here is to just get the voice of our customers. So talk about savings. So we've done a recent study with many of our customers as part of understanding what the network, what the tools really cost. So here's a quote from one of our state and local government customers: saved $1 million in the first year with Gigamon. Another one, Deutsche Telekom, chose us based on our architecture. They looked at everything that was on the market, and they chose us to be their visibility and analytics provider. Here's another one. This is an IT director at a large-scale financial services enterprise, says Gigamon, simply the best. And then finally, an independent survey of our customers say that they achieve a very speedy ROI. So in these days of doing more with less, this is one of the critical things that dictate the success of IT and security organizations. The ability to meet corporate goals, meet their SLAs, while still staying within the constraints of their budget. So those are a few of the reasons why we believe organizations need a visibility and analytics fabric. Richard, time for us to resume our dialogue. Any questions there?
Yeah, fantastic, Martin. When you were talking about teams, it made me think of most large organizations that I talk to, and their infrastructure teams are far removed from their security teams. So if they've got a pane of glass that they look at for the visibility, are they working together on that? Are they working separately, both using a tool? Or does it help to bring the teams together?
It clearly helps bring the teams together. But Richard, you're absolutely right. Historically, these were very separate teams. There was a security organization, there was an IT operations, network operations group, call it what you will. And they worked separately. And they really only interacted when there were major events happened on the network, maybe a major security event, an upgrade event, whatever needed to be done. Then they would come together around that specific issue. What we've seen, and what analysts like Gartner talk about with NetOps 2.0, is that these organizations have to work together. And the critical thing in getting them to work together is getting them to look at the same data at the same time. So providing real-time access to a consistent data set across those two organizations is absolutely critical to the effective functioning of not just those teams, but of organizations.
That is promising. And then what about what you describe as seems to be such a large overlay on top of existing infrastructure? Is the deployment, do I have to schedule it for years in advance, or can you do it piecemeal and get value right away?
Yeah, so Our approach is, unless you've got a greenfield situation, which very few large-scale enterprises have anymore, is to take a piecemeal approach to this. Figure out what the highest value assets, the highest value applications, the highest value workflows, whatever. Figure out what they are and deploy Gigamon in such a way that those things are protected and you get visibility into those first. And then you can actually extend throughout the enterprise. So that's a very typical model for us. Most of our customers are large-scale organizations, so essentially bringing everything down while you implement something like this is just not an option from the start. So it's very much figure out your highest priority issues, your biggest headaches, work with us to figure out how they can be adopted, and then extend from there. But one of the things to say is that we are a fairly inobtrusive solution. It's not a matter of you have to install an agent, for example, on every device that's going to be on the network. We kind of sit in line to the network, so we get the traffic that would just be flowing through in any case. So we try and be as inobtrusive as possible, but I'm not going to pretend that it's magic. It still does take a lot of planning to do this in a seamless fashion.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Martin Crew, for this introduction to your visibility fabric. I found it fascinating and I can see the value.
Great. All right. Thank you very much, Richard.